part of my body being like visibly mangled. So what's that like?
Imagine you're bending your elbow and it just kept going. And when my foot got better, it was like I was just so acclimated to like right foot takeoff, twisty stuff that I was just like, oh, this is fun. This is like scratching the itch.
Do you know the name of the guy who does the manpower front flip roll?
No.
Even close? Can we look this up real quick?
Yes. I have no idea.
Because this is a good. So I was just made aware that he hurt himself, and I didn't realize that. I'm not even able to find this. There's no way.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It's not shared anymore. I'll when we post this, I'll find it. But I wasn't aware that he hurt himself.
Yeah.
When did you find out? Because it's not. Is it on his Instagram?
No. So I didn't per se. I just watched the clip go, and I saw him do this at the end, and I was like, that probably hurt.
Did I? I must have.
But I don't know. I found out today that he separated his AC joint.
I must have tuned out of the clip because I watched this thing. We're talking about the front flip to roll, which is do we officially call that like a front 3/4 or front?
I actually don't know.
Or
front in roll out.
Yeah, used to be a Jason Paul special on flat. In comp, he used to do those.
On flat?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, he would do like round off Arabian roll. Like that was...
Yeah. Okay. I thought you meant just running. Like,
no.
I was like, that doesn't seem very Jason Paul.
No, he used to throw those, and it was always really nice.
Cool.
And the clip of this guy doing that on the Manpower looks almost fake. Like I had to watch it a couple times because he also slow-moed it.
Yeah.
And I was last talking with Nathan last week about it while we were like in between sets lifting, and he had this kind of, this reaction to it of, oh, it's pretty crazy. Like he did it with mats and people didn't like it, and then he did it, and it's wild. And we were both because I think he was under the impression and I was under the impression that he came out of it completely unscathed.
Yeah.
Which doesn't, like, it makes sense that he got hurt. Yeah. It totally makes sense that he got hurt because I'm looking at it thinking, how do you not get hurt doing this?
It's 2 stories, basically, right?
Yeah, it's I worked it out to when I went to the Manpower gap spot and stood on the edge. I worked it out to this is probably like a 14-foot drop across, maybe a little over 10 feet. And so it's not the distance that's the hard thing about it. It's
just the mental.
It's being really high up to begin with.
Yeah.
So like even for like it's not a roof gap 1 story up, it's a roof gap multiple stories up, and then just the sheer amount of drop that you have to take to get it done. So I just I don't know, they have that gravel pile there, and I was just trying to think in my head like the physics of it, because I've watched Dom do things that end up in a dive roll or dive flop type situation onto bushes and sand. Yeah. And maybe even harder, maybe grass or harder floor than that. Like I do recall seeing some things that gave me a similar reaction of like, Dom, how are you okay doing this? And I just assumed like, oh, if you rotate enough, I guess it works. Yeah.
Well, there's a thing too about Dom to be said where like, I don't think he's okay most of the time. Like did you watch this video about his ankle? Where he's like, I was training on this for a year. Yeah. And it's just purple.
Oh.
Dude.
Yeah.
So I think his body's just a tank, but I don't know. What I want to know about that, like the Manpower thing though, is like, how did you come up with that? Like you're laying in bed one night.
Yeah.
And you're just about to doze off and you just go, man, I'm gonna hit that.
I'm going to do this gap that is traditionally landed on one's hands, and I am going to land, or sorry, traditionally landed on my feet. I am going to land on my hands.
Yeah, it's, when I saw it, I laughed. I laughed. It's like, this is messed up.
I thought Instagram was playing a trick on me, and so when I realized it was real, I was trying to make sense of it, and the only thing I could come to is that they stack up that pile of gravel.
Yeah. But even then, like, how much does that do for you? Yeah. It does a bit, especially for your shoulders.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, one thing about the manpower gap that just kind of takes away from it for me is anytime I see someone do it, and I went to the spot on a super wet day, and there was no way I don't think you do a jump like that unless you're with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's just, you need the encouragement. You need kind of someone, not just like a spotter, but someone on the other side to be like, imagine something goes wrong and you're just laying on top of the landing roof. Someone please come save me as you're limping away because it didn't quite go the way you wanted it to.
Yeah.
But I see all like the gravel piling, and it just, I don't know. It's like, it kind of makes it weird to see various characters doing it. Like recently there's been a couple guys in their early 40s that did it, which just seems amazing to me, but also how much gravel did they use? I start to wonder, like, is there, how high are they stacking those rocks? Because if they land and you see footprints, then it's not quite the same. Like we think of it as like landing on a concrete surface, but it's not in a lot of these cases.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to go back and see like the first clips of it. Did they stack gravel up? like the David Bell days.
Like, did they? It's a roof that gravel is always on, but you can.
I mean, I don't know. Myself personally, if I like piled up something to make it softer, I wouldn't care. I still did it. Yeah.
Well, like I said, the hardest part about it is the sheer. You're starting so high up to begin with, and then you're taking a drop. Like it's a pure like mental height thing, and then being in the air for that amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then taking it to your shoulders.
Yeah. And the thing for me is I have this ability because I have a friend who lives just outside of Paris where I can I can make like a yearly visit and go back to Every and take a gander at it. But I've kind of set this thing of this attitude in my head of I'm never going to do that. I'm not really interested in it. And that's a nice safe place to be, because as soon as I start thinking of a challenge as being something I'm going to do, then it's So I think I'm gonna where that goes. I think I'm gonna stick with the attitude of that I'm never gonna do it.
Yeah, but it'd be pretty cool.
I don't know. Some older guys have already done it,
yeah, but it's like your PKCV, you know.
See what
your
is
CV?
What's the C?
Your resume. So.
Oh. You're part of your resume. Just resume of accomplishments.
You sat at the interview I don't see manpower on here. I don't know if you have the required experience.
As you're not allowed into parkour heaven.
Yeah, I mean,
you have not ticked off these various things. Yeah. Visited manpower.
That's what you asked me when you hired me. That was in the interview.
Just took a look. No.
No good.
You're not good here.
Yeah.
Okay, so dude separates his AC, his shoulder.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what is your, of the, we'll call it a stunt.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
I think it's kind of, it's almost comical. It's a little ridiculous. It's insane that somebody did that. Like, I don't get how you convince yourself to do that, but he convinced himself to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of dumb because it's one of those things that are like, oh, cool, everyone's sharing it and like, sick, I'm getting a bunch of exposure. Yeah. And now, I mean, we don't know his name. We can't find him.
Well, it's also just because of the English language and,
that's true.
And everything, and that's Instagram true. Handles.
That's true. But like, I'm not going to be able to find him again unless he does another thing like that. You know what I mean?
I think I started following him after the fact, but how many people do you follow on Instagram?
That's the thing. So I don't know. I think it's one of those like, what is that called? It's like you do something, it blows up, and then it's gone, and it's like. And now
in music, this would be a one-hit wonder.
It would be a one-hit wonder. Yeah. And then, in a month from now, somebody else is going to do something insane, and you're still dealing with your separated AC joint.
Yeah. I mean, I hope he's okay. I hope he gets over it and
then proceeds to do more crazy shit, because that was really cool. Am I allowed to swear on
this? It's just, whatever.
Okay.
Happens.
Okay. try to keep in check.
I don't know. What viewers, listeners would have to tell me if we keep it clean or not. I don't
Let
recall.
us know.
Because
I'll for sure be back. Probably not. I don't know.
I think I keep it clean.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I was actually curious too, like you have a stunt like that and you're thinking like, how did you think this? Can you think of anything you've ever tried that, like, obviously not to that level where it's like, because I think sometimes you go into situations as one progresses in parkour where you're pursuing more risk, pursuing more danger.
Yeah.
But to be that, I guess, delusional that nothing's gonna, I can't think of a time where I'm as cautious as they come, but I don't know about yourself. Like if you can think of anything you've done recently or in the past where you're like, oh, this could have been, this was reckless, like that. Like, I guess that's what we'll call it. It's a very, very reckless thing to do.
I mean, my big injury was on not a reckless thing, but there was definitely, there was, when was this? Was this a year and a half ago when you were doing the online submissions for SPL?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There was this like alleyway catback that I was like, this is like probably not doable for me. But
this was like a cat to cat?
Yeah, it was, cat, running jump, and then cat back cat. And
you were trying to put in a skill qualifier.
Yeah, I was like, this is huge, cool. Mm-hmm. Like, probably too huge for what I could do. And then I completely messed myself up because I just kept sending my body at it. And I was like, nothing can go wrong because I'm like, fine. And then I messed myself up. And then I was out for SPL because of that. And then I couldn't train with everybody. So that was probably one. Another one, this was NAPC 2018.
Is this always going to be around like the big international competition of the year where you get more reckless? Okay.
And it was back when the style qualifiers were like jam things. And I remember being like, I'm going to compete. It's going to be sick. And then I threw, I was like, I've never done like a double side flip to anything hard, but I'll just like do one right now because I got to get in this comp. And then I just did the like kind of the same injury to my foot. I basically just landed like this on the floor. And then I was like, ow, that really hurt. And I messed it up. And then I'm like, no, I have to prove myself. So I got up and did it again. And then landed exactly the same way again. And then I limped home. It's great. So it's probably that. Probably those two. And then I learned. And then I like to think of myself as cautious now.
You learn not to have peer pressure?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that all examples. Are these all the same foot as your? Okay, so not the same.
Those were all right foot.
All right,
I remember. Yeah.
Okay, so for people tuning in, listening, Olivier, who just put out probably like we just put out for your first big edit ever of compilation of I guess 2 or 3 years of footage because there was a big old injury.
The first segment is like some clips are 2 to 3 years old.
Yeah, so your first kind of experience, like saving clips and then putting out a big project.
Yeah.
Deseni, check it out on Origins YouTube. But during this time, you sustained, we'll say a rare injury.
It is less than 2% of dislocations.
Oh, like in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So ankle dislocation.
It is a rare injury.
I would say like pretty rare in parkour too, because when it happened to you, I said, this happened to a guy in Colorado whose name is escaping me at the. I'm losing it for names and places of people. Bringer of Light, some number on Instagram. Someone's gonna. I can't remember his name. This is just a bad episode for names and stuff. This is my own native tongue that I can't remember this person's name. Anyways, someone's going to comment right away with this, but he also dislocated, but with his dislocation, his bone came out of the skin. So
Yeah.
so that's crazy.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, it could have been worse.
Yeah. Well, I remember when it happened to me, I told Tom, I was wearing white socks, and I was like, Tom, are my socks red? He's like, nope. I was like, okay.
Because you hadn't even rolled down and looked at it yet.
I didn't want to look at it.
As you alluded to earlier, this wasn't on like a challenge that you felt any risk around.
It was the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah. And I mean, rightfully so. Like it wasn't a dumb, I think, do you know what's funny about this too is Tom has like a completion of the challenge.
Yeah, and he's just never posted it. I told him to. I said post it and at me and just be like loser or something. It'd be funny.
Well, it was like...
to be fair though, Tom, I was trying to do an extra 90.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, because he caught it here. I was trying to catch it here. So I was going a little extra hip swivel.
See, polecats. I have seen. I think I've seen like a tib fib, so like a broken shin on a polecat. Yeah, it's a weird sheer force that you're kind of drop kicking into. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so this isn't. So you had a full dislocation. I'm curious,
subtalar
like
dislocation. For those who are curious,
I'm curious what that's like because I've sustained 2 big injuries, things that require orthopedic intervention and a long recovery time, but neither of my injuries resulted like in the acute accident never resulted in part of my body being like visibly mangled to where it like looked like when I tore my Achilles tendon, like you could kind of see a little bit of a dent, but otherwise like my ankle and my leg looked normal.
Oh man. Yeah.
So what's that like?
Well, first off, it was strange because right away I knew what happened. I landed and I just felt like, okay, you move a body part.
Yeah.
Feel free to tag along. You move a body part, you feel it moving. You're like, cool. Imagine you're bending your elbow and it just kept going. That's how it feels. It was crazy. It didn't like nothing hurt or anything like when it happened, but right away I was like, my ankle's out.
Yeah.
And it like, I don't know, it just felt like it just kept rotating and I felt my foot just kept going. It was real weird. And then I looked down, saw that it didn't go straight. And then I remember trying to kind of see if I could push it. And that hurt a lot. And that's when the pain kicked in. And then I just sat on my ass. But it was weird. It was very weird because then, I don't know, my like relationship to my body was weird for a bit.
Yeah.
Because I was just sitting at home and I was like, dude, this I'm literally just carrying around a chunk of flesh that I no longer have control of. And that was really weird.
Yeah.
And like even at the hospital, I was like, I didn't even try to move it. Just I was there for I don't know how long. But with Tom, and we just like sat there. I was like, I'm not even gonna bother trying to move it so it was weird. It just felt like something was attached to my body that I couldn't control.
So when they reset it,
yes,
was there like relief there? Like
I was fully K-holed, as they say. Yeah, okay. They dosed me with, I think they said some form of like laughing gas and ketamine. I don't remember it. I remember them being like, let us know when you feel something. Then I was like, I feel something. Then felt great. By the way, I don't think I'll ever do ketamine, but it felt great. Anyways, that's another topic.
Let's not go that way.
I was out and then I came to and my foot was in a splint. But apparently, according to Tom, when they set it back, I was fully out. Apparently, I sat up yelling, and then it like clicked back into place, and then I just laid back down. I don't remember that.
Oh, that's messed up.
I have no recollection of that. And he told me that, and that was when I was like, I don't want to mess with the hard drugs, because not having any control of yourself is a scary thought.
So they splint. So when did it get put into a cast?
So I had it splinted for, I think, it was the Friday to Tuesday is what it was. Because I remember it happened Friday night. We had our staff party Saturday night.
Yeah.
I pulled up in the Asia 4 sweats.
Okay, so this is like this. We're just past a year.
We are 6 days from a year, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was that, and then so what is that? It happened Friday. It was like Saturday morning I got the splint, so it's like Saturday, Sunday. So it was 4 days splinted, and then I went back to the hospital, and then they put in a cast for 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Cast just kind of feels like a prison.
Yeah. It was crazy. I think this is the time that I think about it the most is when I'm showering now. Mm-hmm. I'll get in the shower and I'm like, wow, I can just step into this. For people who have like casts on, you'll know. But that was crazy. When now like it's a thing that not all the time, but sometimes I'll get into the shower and be like, wow. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you have these, I know coming back from kind of a thing where you have part of your body that's supposed to be either non-weight bearing or immobilized for a long time. You just get back to walking and you realize like there's all these just little things like, one of the biggest ones still to this day for me, where it's like anytime I step down a curb or just off of like a single curb for like, and it happens normally. I'm like, oh, that was normal. Yeah. That was a normal step down. Yeah. Way to go, me. Yeah. Meanwhile, like you're back to doing parkour and you're back to doing these big things, but like those things, you're just kind of more conscious in the moment. Yeah. And so everything works properly. Yeah. But it's the day-to-day little things that sometimes take a while and you're still doing it weird. And you're like, why am I stepping down weird? Why am I?
Well, even now, sometimes I'll be walking and I'm like, oh, I don't know, the bus is coming or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I got to like speed walk. And I'll like kind of lean into like dorsiflexion more or whatever. Yeah. And then I'll be like, oh, that kind of feels weird. But then when it doesn't happen, I'm like, oh, I can speed walk.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And so I didn't realize that for some reason in my mind, it's, because it's not me. Yeah. It feels like more than a year.
Yeah. I agree. It does feel like it was longer ago.
Yeah. But so, because you just went back for a follow-up because you're not
I'm not satisfied.
Not satisfied. Yeah. It's a tough one because like I have a number in my head that I've come to when it comes to these types of having had this happen twice now where I've again had to completely unload, immobilize a non-weight bear on a leg and then watch it atrophy and then weird. Build it back and then you have some issues. One, sometimes with stiffness, but also just rebuilding the muscle and all the tissue that comes with it. And it takes a long time. So there's first like getting back to kind of normal function or normal. It's like you said, you went back to this thing and they were like stoked that you were walking normally.
Oh man, yeah, it was so upsetting.
Like, cool, I'm trying to do more than walking.
Yeah.
And then, you get back to, I guess, a normal function, but then there's not just the mental component around the joint or the leg itself, but just in your overall game. And for me, going through it like twice now, the magic number is that I've worked out is 2 years. Yeah. Which is a long time for most people. I mean, and I can tell you like, hey, you're in your early 20s and you got your whole life ahead of yourself, but
it feels like a while. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a long time for a lot of people to think about. And then on the other side of it, you're like, that was a nap. Life goes by quick, and
that's true.
You're fine.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a tricky thing with, we're fortunate that we're in Canada and healthcare is free. And so you don't have to pay for your surgery and that's all good. But then there's the price that you do pay, I guess, is in sometimes quality of care or expediency.
Yeah. Well, like I went back to the hospital a week ago. And then, like you said, I walked in and they're like, oh, you're walking well. And then immediately I'm like, oh, well, great. That means I'm like on the priority list of like patients or whatever. I just went there. Yeah. Like that's how it felt immediately. And then, said this to Tom, but you might have heard. They're like poking around my foot, and they're like, "You probably just have a bad case of tendonitis." And I was like, "Yeah, like, of course I do, but like, there's definitely more to it." And then they're just like, "Great, we'll refer you. That's it." So like, yeah, it's great because I can just email like the physician or whatever I saw, be like, "I want to come in." They're like, "Great, come in next week." That part's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't have to pay for it. But then yeah, it's the other side of it is that.
So did you find out, because you had to see, so you end up seeing a surgeon, but they don't do surgery. They just reset it, cast it, assuming you're good to go, and they tell you like
they told me 6 weeks. When I took off my boot, they said 6 weeks and you'll be back to regular activity.
Yeah, so like
like,
regular
do
activity.
You know what my regular?
Yeah. Well, it's like regular. I don't know. Like,
but even then, I wasn't able to run 6 weeks post taking that off. I wasn't able to do a lot.
Yeah, and so I would tell you, had I been paying attention a bit more in the situation, I would have told you to go back then. Yeah, I'd have been like, go back in. But at least, it's happened now. You went back and
well, definitely like lessons learned. Right? Yeah, it's my first like decent injury.
Yeah.
So
what do you feel like because I watch you, like some of the stuff you posted recently too, like you're doing side pre's and all that stuff. And I think it's like, it's pretty wild to me knowing that there's like a handicap there that you're doing what you're doing. And I think that's just more like a testament to skill. But I talk about like the mental challenge, and I don't know how much that's like affecting you.
Totally. It does.
I guess because like you go into your injury, like your movement level is either already like higher than mine. And so, but for me, it's like, I think after 1 year, it's like, I feel like, okay, I'm 70, I can do 70% of what I want to do. Like I'm fully functional, maybe at a year, slightly over a year, like I'm fully functional, but it's things like, I haven't done a big Kong pre in a while, or I haven't done a running jump in a while, or something. There's certain moves that for me, that's why I say 2 years, to say like back to when people ask like, are you back to 100%? It's like, well, kind of, but this is how long it took for me to be like, okay, my full game is back.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where you're at on that level. Like, I mean,
the thing is I think I've been, whenever somebody asks me like, where are you at? I think I've been saying I'm like 70, 80%. And I feel like I've been saying that for like 6 months now. It definitely plays a part. There's a lot of stuff that I'm like, I know I could do this, but I'm maybe not going to, in case I like bounce it hard or something, because I just know that would hurt. I don't know how much it would set me back at this point, but I just know it would suck. So I'm like less tempted to do that.
You haven't done anything that's like done a jump or a landing and it like really hurt and then like swell up again or something?
Recently, not so much. But it's also because I think I'm like a lot more, I respect it a lot more, I think. But there definitely had been some moments where like, I'll just bounce something kind of just badly. And then I'm just like, kind of like, I got to chill for a week. There was when we were a clip in my video, the one in the Chinatown alleyway, where I do like that Kong stride to like the back roll thingy. And I ended with a side flip. And that side flip, I don't know if you remember, but like I limped home.
No, I didn't.
I didn't know that. Luckily, that spot is I'm literally 2 buildings down, so I didn't have to go very far. But like I limped home, and then I went and iced it, and then I came to work after. Yeah,
I think I remember you mentioning something a little bit. Now that
so like there would be stuff where that would happen, but then the next day it's like, it's definitely tender and it's pretty stiff, but like it'd be okay. So it was always like quick recoveries. I never had huge setbacks.
Are you still wearing like a brace every time you?
No.
Okay.
So I stopped.
So like the stuff you posted recently is like
in the past month I've stopped wearing a brace because I just like I think I could still benefit from wearing one. Because sometimes I'll definitely like do something and I'm like, that felt iffy. I'm like gonna stop there.
Well, it's also like a weird.
But I don't know. I don't want to rely on it.
Yeah.
So
it's a weird thing to to bring into the picture too, because if you're not, say you're doing like full effort jumps, you know, like say like plyometric drills or something, and like not wearing a brace, and it's totally fine. And then you want to attempt a big challenge, and you're like, oh, I better put my brace on for it. Like that. That seems.
I don't like that.
Yeah,
So
that seems like not a good.
I'm trying to step away from it. And actually, like I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I kind of realized I was like, oh, I hadn't even thought about putting it on, which was cool. That was great. That was a great feeling.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I think I told you when we went to LA in the summer, and I told y'all like, I didn't bring any like knee stuff because usually I'll be packing because you know, for SPL and things in the past year, like I'd past year or two, you know, like I'm going on trips, and I'll talk about a lot on this podcast about how getting up, like I'd be on a plane and sitting for a long time, and then getting up and being like, like this walking with like every time I would straighten my knee, I'd get a pinch, and that just got less and less over time. Yeah. To the point where, like I started, that was my first trip where I would pack, like with me, I would have like a knee sleeves, I would have like a voodoo floss band, I'd have like massage tools, just anything to try to basically get some compression to the tissues around the knee, and to manage that, because I'd be anticipating that I would have issues just from sitting a lot from traveling. So when you can stop relying, because those are like crutches, I guess. It
feels that way.
Yeah.
Even if maybe it's not the biggest of deals, it definitely feels that way.
Yeah. And I guess you feel like more free when you're not using them. Yeah. And I mean, we'll segue, I guess, but dealing on like talking on the mental aspect of it. The trip to LA was like a big one for me in terms of that. Cause like the Kong gainer took me 2 days to do it, right? And it was one of those things where like I knew that as soon as I was just like, I'll just do it, it would be completely fine. But I was just so concerned about like, what if I land wrong? And then I just tweak my ankle. Yeah. And then I'm just like, you know, I'm like, oh, it's not worth it for me to just do that for like one challenge that I'm like, that would be cool to do. Yeah. Kong gainer seems like one of those tricks that because I've trained around people that have, you know, worked on that trick in the gym and then attempted to take it outside and seen it not happen, like seen them just break. They're like, oh yeah, I found a spot, and we go, and I'm there to support them, and I'm like trying to get a clip for them, and so like you
that's what that was for me.
So were you thinking of this though, like, because you said you had done some in the gym, but you weren't thinking, because we went to the pass by spot, which is where this happened, and we're on our way there, like, were you thinking like, I'm gonna do a Kong gainer at that spot?
So the night before we left, we were open gymming. We had just put up that new white wall on the spring floor, which is like same-ish height to the spot we ended up at, and then Silas was just doing some to like the big resi. I was like, oh, cool, I'll just do a bunch with you. And so I did a bunch. And I was like, cool, that was fun. And then, I thought to myself, oh, it would be cool. Because I was like thinking of the pass by. I was like, I've seen a lot of people do Kong gainers there. It'd be cool to do it there. So actually, I thought about it before we were even on the way, which is why I was so like...
I think that makes it harder.
Yeah. Because I got there, found the walls that I had like seen in a video, you know, was like, this is where I'm going to do it. And then, you know, we were there like an hour and I didn't do it. And then we went and watched KOTC and I saw like 12 guys doing them so easily. And that made me so like pissed off. And then the next day we got there, I was like, I have to do it. Otherwise, But actually, I did it twice, right? The first time went great. The second time, actually, my ankle hurt a bit. It hurt a little bit. I don't think I mentioned it because I was just like, whatever. It's like, but I definitely like felt a bit weaker. Yeah, you don't want to bum everybody out. That's the thing, right? But then like 15 minutes later, I kind of just like sat for a bit and like stretched it out, and then we moved up to the next spot, and then it felt fine again. Okay. So, yeah, but that was a big one. That was like I think that was a big sort of, I don't want to say turning point, but kind of. Yeah. Where I was like, cool, I committed to like this thing that's probably the most impact I've taken in, I don't know, at that point, like 8 months or 9 months or whatever.
Well, we came back to Vancouver after, and you did 2 more challenges that were like that were on the list
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
So, and in pretty short amount of time after.
Yeah, that's the thing. It felt like that's,
Yeah.
I think hitting like challenges that scared me
Yeah.
made like kind of sped up that process a bit.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I can't approach like bigger challenges that I know I could do. I still would have a hard time doing that. Like more technical ones are fine, you know. But anyone that I'm scared about the impact and like the angle of impact.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just super fascinated by the mental process of what happens when someone puts a challenge like on a list.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And it becomes like bigger than it is.
Yeah.
A lot of times, because a lot of times when like from personal experience, but also watching you do stuff and other people, it always seems like after it's done, it's like, oh, that wasn't that hard.
Yeah. Well, that's, as Tom would say, that's parkour, baby.
Yeah. But it's funny too, because I'll watch a lot of the most impressive people in the sport.
Yeah.
And the frequency of in which they put out big like scale movements, but a lot of times it seems like
Ed
oh
Scott
we were
right
just
Ed
Ed
Scott
will
right now is doing crazy stuff every single day.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Or I guess some of them too are probably he's hitting multiple in a day and then just posting them on different days. But still, it's
just nuts.
Yeah. And so I wonder with a guy like him, like a guy like Ed, what happens if he doesn't do something on the day? Like because I think sometimes he has stuff where it's like, oh, I've been thinking about this one for a while.
Yeah.
But it's weird because the more you think about it, the worse it gets.
Yeah, 100%.
It's almost better if like, I might go to a spot, see a challenge and be like, I'm going to do this today, but one day, but then let it go and then happen upon it a year later with like in the right mood and just be like, oh, I'm going to do this right now. I feel like that's still way different than, oh, this looks hard, but it looks like I can do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to add it to a list of things I will eventually do, which you've done, I've done, other people there have done. And it just seems like it's such a terrible strategy, but it almost needs to be done if you really want to get like the best out of yourself, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I feel like I experienced kind of like the full spectrum of that because I had a few that were like listed. Yeah. And I had like the Congainer, which was, that one like happened fast because it was just over a weekend. But that was like, 2 days of like just thinking about it. Yeah. Made it really hard. And then when I did it, I was like, yeah. And now I think back to it and I'm like, yeah, it was cool. Like I'm pretty stoked I did it, but I was like, and then there's like on the flip side, there was like the double con or at the viaduct, which like lived in my head for 2 months. And I kind of was like, oh, it doesn't seem that bad. And then I just like in the gym did just a bunch of double congs, got to the spot and was like, wait, I was doing bigger ones in the gym. And like, it was like, I didn't mess up once, you know what I mean? It just was like repping bigger ones. So I was like, oh, so then we just did it, and that was like, so it's kind of the flip side of like, oh, I've had this thing on my mind, but I'm overly prepared for it. Yeah. And then the other side of like, I have this thing and I haven't done one before. So I feel like that plays a part too. Yeah.
That's the only way it works for me. Yeah. If I've had something on a list for a long time, like you just said, I have to over prepare. Yeah. If it's not on a list, if it's a challenge that I've looked at and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll come back and do this. And then I come back and look, oh, it doesn't look too bad today. Cool. That's totally different. But if it's something that like you walked away from one day and then you're like, I'm going to come back and do this and I'm just going to keep it in my brain or on a shelf somewhere. The only way it really works, it just gets worse. It gets mentally bigger in your head. So you're like, I got to do bigger stuff. Yeah. in some way to come back to this. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about your, I think, because a lot of people have commented on when they talk about your video, particularly like the way it's laid out or just kind of how you've trained in the last year. And they're like, oh, his style has changed. Yeah, 100%. Do you feel like it has? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what about, in your own words, in your own description, like what have you changed?
Well, okay. Not being able to take big impact immediately made me like, okay, well, I can't train like the challenge style of training kind of disappeared.
Challenge style meaning like not freestyle, like skill challenges.
Yeah, meaning skill challenges, like pushing distance, pushing power, pushing all
scale.
that. Yeah, exactly, scale. That was like gone. I was like, nope, can't do that anymore. And then because I started like, I got basically as soon as like the boot was off, I was kind of back into like just coming to open gym or whatever and like trying to move. And I think that I was like, I could only rely on one foot. My other one, I could like walk on it, but anything more than like walking on it at like a specific angle would hurt.
Yeah.
So whenever I'd get into moving, it was like, cool, I just pick that foot up and see what happens. Okay. So being limited to only like one foot made me, I think it just emphasized like a lot more, especially because I was like, my right foot was my good one. I'm like right twister. So anytime I approached a spot, I was looking more at like clusters of obstacles and then just how I could like keep just turning and using that one foot to make lines. Yeah. And like, I feel like if you watch like my gym clips, which some of them are in the edit, it's all that. It's all just like move, land on my right foot, move, land on my right foot. Move,
okay, so just to clarify, like the way that you already naturally twist accommodates that or doesn't?
I think it does.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was like, well, right foot is my takeoff for like all my flips, all my swings, all of that. So I was already accustomed to that, so it's not like I had to relearn. I just had to kind of like do more of that. And then I started messing around with like more. I used to do capoeira when I was younger, so I started to like be like, oh well, that's a lot of like lower like ground floor flowy kind of moves. Yeah. So I was like,
how old were you when you did capoeira?
I was like 9 to 12.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like 3, maybe 4 years actually. But yeah. And then, so I basically just was like, cool, can I steal that stuff, put that into it? And it was like, yes. And then when my foot got better, it was like, I was just so acclimated to like right foot takeoff, twisty stuff that I was just like, oh, this is fun. And this is like, this is like scratching the itch, you know? So then I just kind of started doing that. And it became, I guess, I feel more dancey. My style feels more dancey now. But like, yeah, it totally changed. Like I would never approach a spot 2 years ago. I would never go to a spot and do what I would do now. I feel like. Okay.
So, cause like, I guess before you had, like you had a good, like well-rounded style. Like you had flips, you had some flip pre-ability. Yeah. But everything was kind of like conventional.
Yeah, I think so. So now it's like, I don't know. I just had to make it work. I feel like I made it work.
Okay.
And then,
And this is a talk we had, like Tom and I had on the last episode where we were talking about Chris Roth. Yeah. And we're talking about him and his style, and Tom kind of just came out and said like, well, he has this new style and he's really taking the new style. And I stopped him for a second because I kind of know what he's talking about. Yeah. But also it's hard to define like what is the new style of parkour. And we went on a couple of different tangents. We started talking about like the flipping axis has changed where before parkour was mostly based or parkour style or free running, whatever you want to call it, was based more around flips that you would see in gymnastics, maybe with some wall interaction, a couple of light bulb moments here and there over the years, and then tricking influence and a couple light bulb moments of that. But now it's like this whole idea of like, for the only word I have for it is like anti-flipping. It seemed like I'll hear Josh trying to learn new moves in the foam pit, and he's like, "Oh, it's so hard not to flip." Yeah.
I think Well, when I feel like when I got injured was kind of when maybe that style was like kind of skyrocketing. So I feel like Beans were kind of doing it for the Beans crew were doing it for a bit, and then now it's like it's been this last year is like
everyone is trying to hit that.
Yeah. So I feel like watching that definitely, I was like, oh, there is a way of like doing it. That's just more like, dancey kind of. But then again, like the beans thing, I don't think the beans thing is the same as like new style. I think beans is a part of new style, but new style isn't beans. You know
so
what I mean?
yeah. And so then I mentioned, and I don't mean to like exclude other athletes. It's just these people have like bigger followings and stuff. But again, we have like the Matt McCreary's, Kevin Franzen. I don't know if any like other like inspirations come to mind.
Well, yeah, there's those two. There's what's his name? Elias Mikov or whatever is blown up lately with like really
Zimakov?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like super dance, very like environment interactions, but in ways that like
his is different too though, because he's often like what I would
almost contemporary.
I was gonna say I would categorize it as like static flow. Because it's not like he's not running or descending or anything. It's just kind of like on the spot.
Yeah. I mean, there's those two. There's also like
you say Jason Paul has contributed quite a bit over the years. Well, just throughout his entire like career.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, the Frank dudes actually have done.
Yeah,
like Pasha,
I'm not.
Jason.
Pasha's his whole
thing.
Like if you wanted to like one word to describe Pasha, innovator.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
but freestyle or style parkour, like it just looks so different today.
Yes,
than it did even like 2 years ago. Even to the day like 2 years ago. Yeah, and so much of it too is just seems to be like accepting that you can play with an idea and it doesn't have to be cool right away. Because I do see like some of the people we mentioned, I do see sometimes they'll post, like a line that has like a vault variation or some way that they chose to put in a different take on a conventional move. Yeah. And sometimes it's really cool and other times it's like, you're onto something, but I don't think it's quite there yet. Yeah,
and I would agree. I mean, I said this earlier, but like with the new style, new flavor of parkour, it's like either you do it really well and it's like really interesting and cool looking, or you don't. It's like, it's kind of,
this is like how I felt when like back right before I started parkour, when I was in high school, I was trying to get into breakdancing.
Yeah.
And how it was in like the local scene in the club at school was there were a couple guys, like none of them were like crazy good or anything, but they could do it. They could b-boy. Yeah. And they teach me like, okay, here's a top rock. Okay, cool. So you're doing your top rock, like kind of 2-step. All right, now here's a 6-step like on the floor. Yeah. And then here's how to do like a basic, the elbow like freeze sort of thing. Yeah. So I get all that. Like I learned, I was an in shape kid, and so like I learned those pretty quick. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, what's next? And I'm like, oh well, you just you make up stuff, and you mess around. And every time I tried, or not every time, but I guess I had enough, maybe 2 experiences early on where it was like, that's whack, that's whack, that's whack, and then so I gave it up. Yeah. And to me, like even b-boying seems a lot more open now.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say like we get. I mean, obviously, like Samson, but like like Phil K. Wizard. People are familiar with him. Huge Canadian b-boy, right? Rebel sponsor, or whatever. And he was in here the other day, and I told him because I was just watching him like train stuff, and I walked up to him and was like, "Hey Phil, just so you know, I'm like stealing all your ideas right now." And he was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Cause what you're doing, man, I'm seeing it off of like ledges." And he was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, yeah, sweet." And I agree. I feel like a lot of these weird sports that don't necessarily fit into like the sports definition, with like, breaking, skiing, snowboarding, parkour, skateboarding, like all that, where there's this like arts side to it. I feel like they're all evolving in this way of like, the only word I have for it is like aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea how to quantify what it is that's the aesthetic of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like that aspect that feels like that's what's becoming more important. Like I was talking with Luca.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Little kid who comes, he's sick. Big flip guy, big Jaden Harris fan, you know? And that's somebody who's very like flip style, like competition style of parkour.
Yeah.
And
Also like I would say like scale.
Yeah.
Like how many rotations, how many spins.
Yeah. And like we were talking, and then he's like, "Oh, you got to learn how to like trip and stuff, you know?" And he's like, "We got to have a trip session in the pit." And I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm kind of like, that's cool, but I don't think I'm not the guy who's going to be hitting trips off of stuff outside." I feel like at this point, what's more interesting to me is how can I tweak just like a regular backflip?
Mm-hmm.
That seems cooler, which is why, like, for example, when we watched Maven,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, so many like light bulb moments, because he's just taking the basics and just like altering them in super interesting ways.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's the like, maybe that's the aesthetic of it, I guess.
So we were restructuring SPL's judging criteria in the past year, and something like you've read through it.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talked about that we actually borrowed from, we looked up like skiing definitions for judging, and one of the like categories under execution. So as part of the description of execution is like how clean you are, but also how they define execution, how we now define execution is like one's ability to add style to what they're doing. And that can take so many forms. But when you think about, I think most people can grasp what it means is like, okay, I have this one move, like, I don't know, say it's a Webster, right? So in your head, you can picture like what a Webster looks like. But there's a difference between someone who has just learned how to do a Webster and can like land it. I can land on my feet. It's clean, right? It's clean, executed. Versus like, I can do this so well that I can like open up. I can, the easiest way to think about it, like one level is like opening up early. And then there's simple things like, is there a grab added to it? Is there a certain like posture?
Is there a little slightly different hip like movement? The axis is just a little different.
And then, like, is there some after bang? Where it's like, I made it look so easy that I landed. Like I don't care about it. And so that's all part of like how we look at execution now. And that is a huge part of the direction that like the parkour style is going into. And it is, and the other thing is, so you brought up Luca and it's like doing triples. Okay. So he just learned, I think he can do a triple full in the foam pit.
He can scoop through.
Is that where he is? Okay.
Off some foam boxes.
So I had some former students come in a couple weeks ago, and they were like mind blown that like this kid who's only been at it for like a year and a bit is doing.
He's a special case though. He's sick.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to that in a second because I'm basically trying to frame this around like that it's actually not that special. I'm trying to like, but let me tell me if you agree when I after I make my case here. But okay, so he's straight to triples, and they're like, they would have never considered that. It's like the top of what when they were, because they've taken like a 5-year break.
I see where you're going,
and they're like, oh, we did doubles, and I think there's something to getting into parkour now, particularly as a kid, where you're a sponge and you're learning things quickly, where a lot of these big scale movements, like a triple twist, are not seen as big because so many people can do them now. Whereas like when you got into parkour, you could probably count the number of people that were throwing. I remember when like, I think it was like, maybe Valtteri got onto the scene, and people were just talking about how he could do triples and he could make them look so easy and stuff. But it's like at that time, so few people could do triples, and then here was a guy who was doing them and making them look easy, making them look like doubles. And for me, it's like you go back like 20 years and stuff, and it's like, well, people were front flipping and back flipping. And we could do a Barani. Do you know what a Barani is?
Oh that's the
it's basically like a front half, but like that's what this was the language at the time, and so you already set even these things that are just seen as very like basic now, like you put them on a pedestal. And I think it's the same as like putting challenges on a list where you're like, I'm never even going to attempt to do triples because I've just had it on a pedestal for so long. But if you come into the game and you're a kid and everyone's already doing it, then it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. And one thing too, like just to add to that, when I started, I was around 13. All I cared about was flips. It was flips. And then I moved here and started training with you guys more. And then I was like, flips kind of suck, you know? And like now that's another reason too, right? Is like, if I set my mind to it, I feel like, not trying to blow smoke up my ass, but I feel like I could probably, like off the A-bomb, I could probably scoot trip in like a few months if I really went for it.
Yeah, I mean, I believe you because when I met you, and especially now, like it doesn't surprise me when you pick up new things. Yeah. Because you, and I'm going to probably describe this wrong, but like you seemed like a natural flipper, I guess, right? It's like I've thought about this before where like whenever I watch Joey Adrian do something really basic, it just looks like with such ease. Like you could just roll off the couch and like do a backflip anytime you want, right? Makes no sense. but like there's just some people where I'm like, this looks really easy for you.
Yeah, right. And I think that's because I dedicated like 7 years to it. Where all I did, like my typical training sesh when I was like 15 was go to the sketchy gym I went to, whatever, and set down a bunch of mats and just send over and over and over and over, like just any kind of flip till we like figured it out. Okay. And I just did that so much that I feel like now it's like, it just in my head, like I think maybe it just comes down to like a air awareness thing. I feel like people who train flips a whole lot, and particularly probably when they're younger, just get like this knack for that, where it's like really easy to pick up on stuff because you're more aware of how to like tackle that when you're upside down, you know, whatever. Yeah. But anyways, what was it that?
I guess if the moves like aren't, as I said before, like if you don't put them on like such a high pedestal, you're like, oh, these seem attainable to me. Yeah. If more people are doing them.
But the thing is, like, now for me, like when I started, it was dubs were insane. Now everybody can do a dub, you know, everybody and their mom, like, so it's like for me.
How did you know my mom could do dubs?
Because everybody can. So I feel like now for me, like a trip off something. Because I'm like, cool, I'm not the guy for that, and I'd rather mess around with other stuff. Yeah. Whereas I see what you're saying with like, also like the access to knowledge, like with Luca or whatever. He's like, yo, I was DMing Jaden the other day and like asking for twisting tips, and like this is the stuff you told me. I'm like, that's not how I learned. You know, until I came here, and then Jackson was like, why are you doing it like this? And then he like fixed all my stuff for me, you know. But so I don't know, I think that's why like the interest moves from, and I feel like this is for a lot of people probably around my age, right? I feel like a lot of guys who have been in it for a while, is no longer how far can we push the scale of these tricks, but more like how far can we push the aesthetic of the tricks. I think becomes more interesting, because it's like at a certain point it's like, cool, you can trip, next thing is quad, cool, you can quad, next thing is this. But it's like if you can full, there's hundreds of ways to like mess with that, as opposed to like, great, well I learned this, so the clear next step is that. And I think that's what's probably interesting about the new style, because that goes for every single move. So it might be that.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to progress, and it's again a thing like coming back from injury. I've never had I've never been big into style. Just never. It didn't come. It didn't come very easily. I was better at, you tend to focus on what you're better at. And so coming back from injury, it's like for me, my head actually also goes to aesthetic. I start trying to clean up. Because you're coming back from injury, you can't work on scale. You're like, oh, I have to get over all this stuff before I can start like jumping further again and trying to push like mental or whatever. And so everything just becomes about like you said, aesthetic. But for me, it's probably like, I don't think a lot of people would look at like videos of me and be like, oh, your style really changed. I would have to like point out to them and be like, see this jump from 3 years ago?
Yeah.
See that trash precision landing?
Yeah. Right.
I wouldn't do that anymore.
Right, yeah. But
that would be the difference.
Then again, that's a different style of moving.
See how I came out of that climb up?
Yeah.
Whack. Wouldn't do that anymore.
I mean, that's true for me too. Yeah. Yeah, but I feel like that's a style in of itself. It's more, it's almost more focused on technique and just like execution in terms of, I don't want to say technicality, but it's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I completely forgot what I was about to say.
That happens. Happens on this show.
Yeah, that's
the thing.
Well.
Yeah. Well, I think anyways, I think that might be about it for us today. There's a whole bunch of new projects that are dropping as we get to like the end of the year, and Tom just got back from he was in Sri Lanka for his vacation, and I think we have a plan to do some sort of watch party. We're trying to figure out because there are a couple of. It's not the end of the year yet. I know today is the 11th. I know Store just recorded the Store Awards yesterday. So they've already put in everything.
Knowledge.
It's on Insta. You got click on people's stories. It's there. I mean, I did a little bit of DMing, but I mean, I think you can still, if you look at Callum's stories, you'll see it's there. Anyways, they've already put in everything. They put a deadline for the 10th, and so I'm
just a poser.
Oh, you're supporting more than I am. But anyways, they've already put in everything, and we still have a couple more projects. I believe that I know one big one that I'm looking forward to is Team Fat. Liz Boom, I think, is the name of the edit. Team Fat featuring Seabay and one other big character that I'm forgetting, and it's not going to come to me. So whatever, forget about it. We're live here. But I don't know if we're going to do, because Tom really wanted to do like our own sort of interpretation of video of the year, because the Store Awards gets a bit convoluted where they have male of the year, and now they have best female as well. They have video of the year, and then there's this kind of middle category of one man army, and I think they're also doing one woman army, and which adds to the we were dead wrong last week or last episode, because I think we were coming to the conclusion that Store doesn't really do a video of the year, but they do. Last year it went to Pariah Clan's Flinging Muck, which is I think a video that I know Tom didn't enjoy. I don't remember it to be fair.
I remember watching it, but
I remember seeing it. I remember some of it, but it didn't stand out, I guess, in our heads as like a video of the year, like one to come back on. Not to take anything away from Pariah Clan. There's some crazy talented guys on that crew, but for whatever reason, we kind of came to this conclusion that like, oh, they don't really do video of the year, but it's just called favorite flavor. And so it does exist.
Yeah.
But it gets a bit confusing because you have these other awards such as...
Don't they also do like best team video and stuff like that?
They do best team.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think it's specifically because they have a video category called one man army.
Yeah.
And maybe possibly one woman army. Yeah. Where that could also win video of the year, but I don't know if, and maybe it changes this year. Maybe they come out this year and they give the award to because we've talked about kind of who our I think you agree, our leading contender is Chris Roth and Manor, their video maven.
Sick. I need to watch it again.
It looks like video of the year.
Yeah.
Or is that one man army?
I was a big neophyte guy too, though.
Yeah.
Berlin's also great. I mean, no, there's so many good ones, man.
Yeah. So we'll probably end up doing a Store Awards review, and then maybe in the same episode or maybe after that we'll get into maybe a different interpretation, the STS interpretation of video of the year. We'll see. All right, cool. Thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, please, if you're not subscribed, do that. If you enjoyed today's episode, actually more important, share it with someone. Share it with someone else that you think might enjoy the talk we had. And we will catch you in the next one.
Peace.